anytime. So you can let your eyes have this lovely rest. They're bathed in the darkness under your hands. And it's just, yeah, just really a chance for the eyes to rest. Also let the face soften. And it's up to you, but you might like to, keeping your palms over your eyes, let your head roll a little bit to the right and to the left. That's it. And just this very much feeling that we're letting the neck ease out, we're letting the face soften. And so it's really up to you. If you like the rolling of the head, you can keep doing that a few times to the right and to the left. If you are enjoying having your palms over your eyes, you can keep on doing that. And if you prefer to bring your hands down onto your belly, you could do that instead. And perhaps just let yourself have 2 or 3 cycles of breath wherever you are. Allowing your body to settle, just to start that process of undoing. So sort of at the end of the day, heading towards the end of the week. I think often maybe Thursday evening's a time when we feel quite tired. So hopefully these little things we do lying down will just help us to find a bit more energy. And then when you're ready, what I'd like you to do is release your arms either onto the floor beside you or let the hands rest on your belly. And if your legs are long, bend your knees and bring your feet to stand on the floor. And then when you're ready, you're going to start to let your knees tilt a little bit to the right and a little bit to the left. So this nice familiar movement of letting the knees tilt from side to side, feeling the pelvis tilting from side to side. And just noticing how that feels in your body. So sometimes when we do a familiar movement, that in itself can help us relax and just let go a little bit with this feeling of, ah, yes, I know this. So a couple more times, let the knees move to the right and to the left. And then you're going to settle down in the center. And we're going to do a movement for the upper body. So if you're comfortable lengthening your legs out, you could do that. You don't have to. You can keep your knees bent if you prefer. Just don't let them tilt. And then we did this one last week. We're going to take the arms up towards the ceiling and then make this big sort of circle with the arms over our chest. And then interlink your fingers and then just start to rock your circle to the right and to the left. And letting your head move in the same direction as your arms. That's it. And keep your circle circular. And feel how you're rocking across your upper body. Across the upper back. Sort of to one side of the spine, to the back of one shoulder, and then to the other. And just notice if you feel any sort of tightness or tenderness. Whether you feel more to one side than the other. And just do that 2 or 3 more times, whatever feels comfortable. That's it. Make sure your head is moving with your arms. Very nice. And then let your arms come to rest. And let a breath come in, let a breath leave. Give the weight of your arms to the ground. It might be your elbows and your hands on your belly, or it might be the whole of the arms on the ground. And let another breath come in, let another breath leave. And then when you're ready, you're going to bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And just perhaps 2 or 3 times, come back to tilting your knees from side to side like this. We're going to do some different things with the legs and tilt the knees, but I just come back to this one to start with. Okay. And then pause in the center. Let your right knee fold into your chest. And then let that knee come out to the side and bring your right ankle onto your left thigh. That's it. Good. Quite close to your knee. That's it. And then you're going to start to rock side to side on your left foot. So the foot that is remaining on the floor. If you feel that you want to bring that foot a bit more central, you could do. So see how it feels to rock with the legs in this organization. That's it. And the legs are sort of, in a way, more fixed here. So the whole of the pelvis is possibly going to move. The pelvis and the legs are all going to move as sort of one item, one package. Good. So carry on a couple more times to the right and to the left. And then from here, you pause in the middle and just slide your top leg further across. So now you're crossing your knees. That's it. And then carry on rocking on your standing foot, or come back to the rocking. That's it. And see how it feels with the legs in this organization. So how does it feel around the pelvis, around the hip joints? Perhaps, we feel the low ribs moving. That's very nice. So you can carry on with this a few more times from side to side. We're then going to uncross the legs, and if you want to lengthen them out, you can do. So we're just going to have a couple of quiet breaths before we do the other side. Yes, and so it might be quite nice to have the legs long on the ground and just to feel the length of yourself resting on the ground, supported by the ground. Letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave. So perhaps again here, one more cycle of breath. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave. And then bend your knees, stand your feet on the floor. And we'll move on to the other side. So this time you're going to fold your left knee into your chest. That's it. And start by bringing your left ankle onto your right thigh, close to your knee. That's it. So the left knee is coming out to the side. Good. And then again, if you want to adjust your standing foot on the floor, you can do, if you want to make it a bit more central. And see how it feels to rock side to side now with the right foot on the floor. And the left leg in this position where we're starting to move a little bit into the hip joint. This external rotation. Good. Find, as I can see, most of you are, Sam, I just can't see you, so which is fine. Just find a rhythmic rocking movement that is enjoyable to you. That's what's really important. That's nice. And whenever, depending on how much you're enjoying this, whenever you want to move on to the second variation by sliding that top leg across, you can do that. And then see how it feels to rock side to side on your standing foot. And Emma, I hope these are all right for the hips. You're doing the hips, you're doing these. So yeah, I'm hoping they're okay. Good. So a couple more times, rocking side to side on that standing foot. And then again, you might like to lengthen your legs out. Yes, you might like to lengthen your legs out on the ground, and then you're going to fold your knees into your chest. And you might also then like to take your legs up to the ceiling and shake them out. So it's just lengthening the legs out on the floor. That's the tissue. Rachel, there's something we can do which you might want a tissue for later on, so I've put them there. Okay, so you can take your legs up to the ceiling if you like, give them a little shake out. And then we're going to be rolling over onto one side, and we're going to be doing a sort of twisty movement from our side. If you know that one shoulder is less comfortable than the other, maybe start with the more comfortable shoulder on top. Rachel, would you like a cushion under the side of your head? Might be better than your arm. There you go. So yes, you want to lie on your side. So lie on your side with your knees bent and at a right angle. And you could put a cushion, it's up to you whether you put a cushion under the side of your head. I'd like you to have both arms out in front of you at shoulder height. So your knees are bent at a right angle. Now, Rachel, you might find you're going to need to shuffle over towards the fireplace a little bit. So these ones always do take a bit of space. I'm sort of thinking, how on earth would we do this with more people in the house? So you're going to be doing a big movement. So sometimes we slide the top arm, but this time you're going to be taking your top arm up towards the ceiling above your shoulder and over towards the floor behind you in that way. So you draw, it's like I always think you're drawing this big arc, or think of a rainbow, a big arc or a rainbow sort of over your shoulder, up in the air, over the shoulder, towards the floor behind you. If you let your top knee, Emma, if you let your top knee lift or slide, it might help you because it's nice in this to eventually end up with your arm on the floor and keep your arm on the floor. Yes, having to move some of the furniture around, Emma. Good. Yeah, so that's it. And then you'll see if you're keeping your shoulder, you've got your sort of top arm has come onto the floor behind you, you've maybe let your head roll. And then again, it's fine if your top knee lifts as well. But it might be if you start to settle your arm on the floor that top knee, that's it, Emma, can drop down a little bit more towards the other one. And it's up to you whether you stay in this for a few breaths or you keep moving in and out of that sort of arc that you're drawing. That's it. So if you want to do a little bit more on this side, you can do. And then in a moment, we'll move over onto the other side. But when I was doing this earlier, I sort of thought, well, this actually, after the things we've done on our back, I thought, oh, actually, this really feels rather nice. I was surprised how nice it felt. But obviously, this might be your better shoulder. So I have to see. But I think even on my less good shoulder, I was surprised how nice it felt. And you could, if you're lying with both arms on the floor at shoulder height, you could see from there, you could probably then just roll onto the back of your pelvis and come onto your back. That's it. And just sort of come onto your back for a couple of breaths. That's nice, before you come onto your second side. Oh, nice to see your feet there, Sam. Yes, very nice. If there's any sort of feet up towards the ceiling things you want to do before side 2, definitely do that. Otherwise, come and settle yourself on side 2. Bend your knees at a right angle to your body. Hopefully you've got enough room for your arms. You're right there, Rachel. You're ending up under the sofa. So you'll find under there. So yes, when you're on side 2, again, you can have a cushion under the side of your head if you like. And you're seeing, how does it feel to start to take that top arm up over the shoulder in this big sort of arc. Yes, possibly following your fingers with your gaze. And also, if it's helpful, let your top knee slide back on your bottom side, or let that top leg lift. That's nice. Good. So again, just make sure whatever movement you're doing feels as comfortable and enjoyable as possible, so that you're not pulling on your shoulder in any way. And then if you do come to settle in this one, really think about how can you soften? How can you let the shoulder settle down onto the ground? How can you let the arm soften? And then that might be when you can then think about letting your top knee settle a little bit. Good. We'll just have a few more breaths on this side. So again, if you want to do any more moving in and out, you can do. If you just want to stay in the twist and have a few more breaths. Very nice. And then what you might like to do is just have a few, bring your arm back and just have a couple of breaths on your side, because from here we're going to come over to hands and knees in a moment. So you could just have a few breaths on your side, contemplating hands and knees, maybe imagining yourself on hands and knees. And then when you're ready, there's no rush coming onto hands and knees. And we're going to start with some tap movements and a bit of tail wagging, a dog, a bit of child's pose. If you start settling onto hands and knees, just finding your points of contact with the ground, so your hands and your knees, and just having a look down at the floor. So see where your hands are, see where your knees are. Make sure that space between the two is roughly the length of your body. And then starting to round your back to the ceiling and dip your spine down to the floor, and see how those movements feel. Rounding and dipping. And letting your breath flow as it wants to. And you may find that as you move, your breathing starts to coordinate with the movement. And that's fine. If it doesn't, that's also fine. And you could also add in a bit of tail wagging. So this is sort of up to you really now to move between a bit of cat and a bit of tail wagging. If you're someone who likes to mix the two up, you can do that. And just noticing as you do the movements, how do these feel in your body? Do you do one of these movements? Does it feel particularly nice? Or do you do one of these movements and not that it doesn't feel good, but that maybe you really notice a tight place somewhere in your body? And whenever you would like to take the weight off your arms, you're going to round your back in rounded up cat. And then rock your hips back over your heels and come into child's pose. And let yourself settle in child's pose for a few cycles of breath. So let the breath come in, let the breath leave. Let yourself be settled on the ground. Just have another cycle or two of breath in child. And you can take your time, but in your own time, we're going to do a couple of dog poses. And then we're going to come into a different variation of child. So, and I say a couple of dog poses, but it might be that you want to do one longer dog. So the couple of dog poses is perhaps this, they're shorter. And if you're feeling a bit tired and reluctant, then you could tell yourself you're going to do a very short little dog pose and then maybe come back into child. And when you're in dog pose, you eventually end up in dog pose. I'd particularly like you to notice, how does your upper back feel? Because we're going to be focusing a little bit more on the sort of next things we do on hands and knees on our upper back. So come into dog, you can have a little breath in child, you can do another dog pose. But just, how does the upper back feel? The spine between the shoulder blades. So this place where we can easily start to sort of get tight and tense and sore. So you stay in dog pose as long as you like. When you come down from dog, I'd like you to do the child pose variation where first of all, you have your knees a bit wider apart. And then it's the one where you take your elbows forward and your hands so you're bringing your hands into prayer pose, sort of over your head. And if the knees are wider apart and the hands are in prayer pose, you've got this feeling of walking the elbows forward and flattening out and lengthening about a bit in the upper back. So it may be that we start to notice what's going on or how the upper back's feeling a bit more in this pose. And some people in this like to bring the hands onto the base of the neck. If this causes you discomfort in the sort of tops of the arms, then obviously come out, lengthen your arms onto the floor. But otherwise, yeah, just see how it feels to have a few breaths here. Yeah, that looks very nice, Rachel. And particularly, how does it feel in the upper back? Can we find this feeling of sort of flattening out there? And can we have this sense that the elbows are moving away, so from our knees perhaps, and we're opening in the underarm. So have another breath or two there. And if you want to release your arms into more of a sort of normal child pose position, you can do. And then you might like to come onto hands and knees and just give each leg a stretch out behind you. That's usually fairly pleasant. And what we're going to do now is we're going to do our puppy poses, which we haven't done for, I think, the last time we did these. And in between the puppy poses, we're going to round in cat. For the first puppy pose, you're bringing your forearms onto the ground. And then you generally have to walk your knees back a bit, because you're then dipping your chest down to the floor and your bottom has to stick up in the air most affectionately. So knees, chest dipping down to the floor. My sort of nose is squashed on the floor. That's it. Bottom up in the air. Good. Chest dipping down towards the floor. That's it. You might want to walk your knees back a little bit more, Rachel. So there's sometimes this, or your elbows forwards a little bit. There's sometimes we have to experiment a little bit in this one to get the right distance between the elbows and the knees. But what we're looking for is this sort of stretch into the upper back. So yeah, the bottom is going straight up rather than back at the heels. It can be quite intense. So whenever you've had enough, come onto hands and knees and round your back in a round up cat. And then that's sort of this opposite movement to the upper back if we do our rounded cat. And then our puppy pose number 2 is where we hold our elbows. So we've got our elbows on the ground, we're holding the elbows on the ground. And again, we're sticking our bottom up in the air and the forehead comes down onto the ground. Mine comes onto the inside of my elbows. Yeah, and see how that one feels. That's nice, Rachel. So this, you may find that this one is more comfortable for you. That looks like a very nice line there, Jan, through your upper back. And again, it's this sense of, can the upper back lengthen out, maybe even feel that it's dipping down a little bit. And we're moving into some of that, perhaps that tightness we can experience there. And again, whenever you've had enough, particularly if it starts to feel a bit intense, hands and knees round out your back in your rounded up cat. Really let your head hang and feel that sort of opposite movement of the upper back rounding, the shoulder blades moving away from each other. So the last puppy pose is the one, I always think this is the most intense one. It's closer to the child pose we did. So we've got our elbows on the floor, quite close together. Can't really move once I'm in there. Bottom up in the air. Chest, yeah. It can be quite strong in the shoulders. So yeah, see what that one's like. And if you come into this one, or yeah, any of them, and yes, Jan, I think you maybe need to take your bottom slightly further back actually in that one. Yeah, you look like you're almost too long in it. Try if you felt, yeah. See how you get on. Good. And if you do, yeah, that looks better to me. That looks better. If you do that one and you don't like it, you can always release your arms to the floor and take it back into the first puppy. And again, if like me, you're finding it quite intense, you might not want to stay there too long. Like that, to come back, hands and knees, round your back to the ceiling. That's very nice, Rachel. Okay. And then what we'll do, you might just want to sit back and kneel and give your hands a shake out for a moment. What we're going to do is come back into dog pose. See how dog pose feels after the puppy poses. And then we'll go through a forward bend and up into standing. So I often find that my upper back just feel, this sense of lengthening out in the upper back carries on into dog pose. So let's see if that's the case. So we can hands and knees, tuck the toes under, rocking the hips back over the heels, coming into dog pose, seeing how it feels across the back of the shoulders, in the upper back. Of course, there might be other things going on in our legs, might be wanting to bend one knee, bend the other. Give yourself several breaths in dog if it feels reasonably enjoyable or helpful, fruitful. And obviously, whenever you do want to come out of dog, we're going to go through a forward bend and roll up into standing, but there's no rush. So yes, forward bend, letting the head go, rising with all of the weight in your feet, particularly rooting the heels into the ground. You can have another breath or two in your forward bend, and then we'll roll up into standing. Is this okay likewise? And airwise, yeah. Okay, so come and settle in standing. So maybe have a little look at your feet. And then just do a little bit of swaying from side to side. So we're going to do a few balancey things. That's it. So if you're looking at your feet, you might like to then close your feet and do a little, close your eyes and do a little bit of swaying. And what we're going to start to do is just, I suppose, a few sort of balancey prep type things. So from swaying, you could settle yourself down. And you're going to let your weight, so we're not really coming into a balance now, we're doing a few prep things. So let your weight come onto one leg and come onto the ball of the other foot. And the first thing you're going to do, I've got my hands on my hips, because you're just going to rotate on the ball of that foot and let your knee turn in and out. That's it. So that's really familiar to us. And then you could start to circle on the ball of that foot. So you're drawing a circle with your knee. That's it. Can you draw a circle with your knee by, very nice, by rotating on the ball of your foot? Could you go back the other way? Yeah, that's it. Good. Okay, let's try the other side. So bring your weight onto that foot leg that we were just moving. And first of all, on the ball of your foot, that sort of swiveling movement, side to side, knee in, knee out. And then just making it a little bit more complex, that's circling on the ball of the foot. So it's as if we're drawing a circle with our knee. And then if you can work out how to change direction, then go the other way. Good. Okay, and then one more little sort of balancey prep thing I'd like us to do. So come back and stand on the first foot. And I'd just like you to see if you can sort of swing the other leg from side to side. Sort of, doesn't have to go particularly wide out to the side. Think more about crossing over. So we're coming back to that sort of crossing our knee over our knee that we did on our back. Good. Very nice. Looks like everyone's doing a little dance. So let's do the other side. Yes, that's it, Jan. You could add you've got the piano there. You could just give us a tune. Yeah, so just a bit of swinging the leg from side to side, and your feet, toes can skim the floor. If you're feeling very agile, you could, very nice, Emma, yes. You could, very agile, you could take your foot off the floor completely. Maybe not, I don't feel quite that steady. Lovely, so come then and settle both feet back on the floor and give your arms a little shake out. Actually, maybe give your legs a little shake out. And then we're going to do those ones where you come forwards onto the balls of your feet. So I'm doing a very bad example of that. So bringing your weight forwards onto the balls of your feet, lifting your heels up. And we will do those swinging twists in a moment, Sam, so don't worry. Well, so hopefully you're doing a much better job than me of seeing how it feels to come to balance on the balls of your feet, And then bringing your heels back down slowly. So do that perhaps a couple more times, and then we'll stay up in the balance and we'll take our arms up. Okay. All right, so the next time you come up onto the balls of your feet, that's it, stay there. Float your arms up. Very nice. Let your shoulders drop down. And just see if you can have a few breaths there, sort of settling the shoulders, quietening the front of the body, being as steady as possible. And then from here, you're going to, when you come down, you're going to let your heels come down and you're going to sweep your arms around and down into a forward bend. And just have a few breaths in the forward bend, sinking down into your heels. If you feel that you want some movement and you want to sweep your arms from side to side, you can do. That's always a nice option. Okay. So just very nice. Just another breath or two in your forward bend. And then let the breath come in, sink into your heels, roll up into standing. Maybe give each leg a little shake out when you come up into standing. So we're going to do a little sequence of balances, which will be familiar to you. We're going to take our leg back behind us, and then through tree, and then on into eagle arms. And we'll have our hands in prayer pose, I think, the whole time, unless you prefer to have your arms just hanging to start with. So maybe come back to closing your eyes and swaying a little bit and deciding which leg you'd like to stand on first. Obviously, we're going to stand on the base. And then opening your eyes, you know, it is quite helpful to bring the hands into prayer pose. So the first thing we're going to do then is shift our weight into our chosen leg and foot and slide the other foot back behind us and slip onto the top of the toes. And you can see how it feels to straighten that knee. It sometimes makes my foot cramp, so just be aware of that. And we won't stay too long in that one. We'll bring the foot back under the pelvis and we'll turn our knee out to the side into this sort of mini tree pose. So your foot comes on your ankle, or you could have a few toes on the floor. And just give yourself a few breaths in your mini tree, letting your shoulders be soft and relaxed. Just settling, breathing. Very nice. And then from here, just bring your toes onto the floor for a moment and bend your standing knee. So then we're going to cross our raised leg over that bent standing knee. So we've got that feeling of like sitting down a little bit, but trying to keep our spine upright rather than leaning forward. And I just think, yes, it can feel quite a lot of, you feel quite a lot going in the muscles around the ankle and the hip. Yeah, good. Let's see if you can have another breath or two. Okay. Sorry. Come down, have a little shake out. I'm just going to, I didn't switch my daughter's phone off earlier and it's just going to be ringing all the time. Silence. Year 7. Stupid phone calls. Okay, good. Have a little shake out and then we'll do the same little sequence on the other side. So settle down, let the hands come into prayer pose, and just start to shift your weight onto your other foot. Come up onto the ball of the foot you just stood on, and then that foot's going to slide back behind you. And then we'll slip onto the top of the toes and maybe straighten that back knee, or at least see how that feels for a moment. And then let that foot slide back in under your pelvis and let the knee come out to the side. So we come into our little mini tree pose. And just see if we can settle and maybe find a moment's peace in tree. You know, trees that, you know, really familiar, hopefully enjoyable. That's it. Okay, so we can be quiet and settled. You can stay there longer if you like, but if you want to move on to the last balance, bring your toes back onto the floor for a moment and bend your standing knee a little, and then cross that raised leg over it. So we're coming on to our eagle balance now. So it's a little bit of a feeling of sitting down, but trying to keep upright rather than leaning forward. Very nice. Hands can stay in prayer pose, shoulders nice and relaxed. Good. And yes, there's quite a lot of work going on around the ankle and the hip joint there. So do come down and give your legs a little bit of shake out, if you like. Now, we're going to come into a forward bend, but I'd like you to do this forward bend in the center of your mat, facing the long edge of your mat. Because once we're in this forward bend, we're going to take the feet progressively wider. So yeah, you won't have to move. Then you can stay in your forward bend. So you're going to go down into your forward bend first with your feet a little distance apart. So sort of Tadasana, distance apart. And yes, just have a few breaths there. Enjoy that feeling of the sort of stretch up through the backs of your legs and also the releasing forwards of your spine. You can bend your knees as much as you like. And then from here, whenever you want to, you can walk your feet a little bit wider apart. So I would go, you know, not particularly wide to start with, maybe as wide as the narrow edge of your mat, the width of your mat. And then how does that feel? And if you fancy bending one knee, bending the other, shifting your weight from side to side, that's always an option. Or, you know, you can just be quiet in the center and bend both knees. And then from there, you can go a bit wider. So, you know, within reason, you know, go to a place that feels comfortable. If you want to have, you know, be in a stretchy place, you can experiment with going a bit wider. We're not trying to do the splits here. We're just ending up in a wide forward bend. So, yeah. So it might be that you go a little bit too wide and you have to come back in, or it might be you think, okay, I could go a little bit wider and see how that feels. And absolutely, if you want to do a bit of bending one knee, bending the other, you can do. And of course, there's all these sort of different arm positions we can have. We can have hands on our ankles. Jan's got the very nice one with the back of the hands resting on the ankles. We can hold our elbows. We can bring the backs of the hands onto the floor. That's it. Good. So if you're happy there, have a few more breaths, but whenever you have had enough of being in a forward bend, come back up into standing, sinking into your heels to come back up. Yes, and then walk your feet back in. Good. So now, Sam, we are now coming on into our loose swinging twist. And we're just going to feel the whole of the body coming along with this movement. And Jan, we're going to be coming back to something we did yesterday because, you know, which you quite enjoyed. So just, yeah, feel how the pelvis is moving here. The whole of ourselves is moving. A couple more times. Let's drink of water. Good. Okay, brilliant. So what we're going to do now is come to stand on your mat. So you've got a bit of space in front of you and you can step one foot forward. It doesn't matter which. And then we can just do a little bit of this toing and froing, letting our weight come into our front foot, letting our weight come into our back foot. Good. And then eventually let both feet settle down. Now, quite often we do this, and you could do it the first couple of times where we don't let our pelvis move, we just swing our arms. So you could try that. But then what I want you to do is to turn towards your back leg, but let your pelvis move. And if you do that, you might want to let your back foot turn out. So if you're letting your pelvis turn towards your back foot, you might then want to let your back foot turn out of it. And we're going to stay with our pelvis turned towards our back foot. So again, do turn your back foot out if you want a little bit. And you might at this point, I sometimes then take my front foot a little bit further forward. That's it, Jan. We're coming to this one here. So we're bending the front knee. We're bringing our arms at shoulder height. And then from here, so I have this sort of feeling of being this sort of huge, wide sail here. We're going to be moving from here towards half moon pose by shifting our weight into our front foot and just trying to stay very wide and tipping ourselves forward. And just, yeah, seeing where we end up. Good. Yes, exactly, Sam. And it might be that you just do that once, you know, you do it and then you come back up again. So you come back to that starting point, really wide across the arms and the shoulders. And I think that's something to try and keep that width across the arms and the shoulders. Good. And just, it might be for a moment that we find the balance. And that's very nice, everyone. Really well done. Good. Lovely. Excellent. Yes, have a little shake out and we'll do the same thing on the other side. So step the other foot forward. Do a little toing and froing. I'm going to turn my back on you, Rachel, but I realise I've turned my back on everyone completely. Good. A little bit of toing and froing. Settle the feet down. And again, you can just start with perhaps, you know, what's it like to swing the arms and not move the pelvis? And then just start to turn towards the back leg and let your pelvis move. So we're letting the pelvis turn towards the back leg. We're maybe turning the back foot out. And then if we stay there at that point, we don't have to, but I do sometimes step the front foot forwards a bit. And at this point, the front knee's bent, but as you come into the balance, you think about maybe straightening that front knee. So we just think about being really wide and then this sort of tilting forwards, like this big sail, that we stay really wide across our front. Good. There might be a moment of balance. Good. Yeah, moments of balance, very nice. There's lots of moments of balance here. You can come back up and you can try again. So just this feeling of being really wide and expansive. And yeah, this sort of controlling as much as we can, this tilting forward. Very nice. Lovely. Good. So have a little shake out. I can't remember if we've done this one on a Thursday evening or not. Should we have done this one? Yes. Yeah, yes. Have we not done it this way? No. Ah, hard. Yes. So this is what I was just saying to Rachel is if this is a sort of different way I've been experimenting with since the summer. So if you haven't done it like this before, it's going to feel harder. But as we come back to it, it starts to get more familiar. Not that we're necessarily doing it every Thursday evening. We're going to come to the backs of our mats. We're going to make our way down to the floor through, just putting my mat out, through a forward bend and dog pose. And if you want to do a one-leg dog, that will feel really easy because you'll have your hands on the floor. You don't have to. So if you start with your hands in prayer pose at the back of your mat, just take a moment to feel your footprints on the floor, your hands in prayer pose. Let a breath come in as you exhale, take your arms down and then up. Long and tall, let the breath come in, drop the shoulders away, and then rounding down into your forward bend. Couple of breaths in your forward bend and then on into dog pose. And just remember, when you come into dog, you've got the choice of doing a one-leg dog if you like. And the fact that it will feel easier than that balance because you've got two hands on the floor as well. Good. Yes, yeah, so remember there's all those different variations. That's it when you take one leg off the ground, whether your knee is bent or your leg is long. When you play around with a little bit of both. Good. Oh, and what I didn't say was from dog pose, you'll go into child pose. Okay. Very nice. So when you're ready, very nice, lovely Jan, settling down into child pose. So from being in that balance, and particularly if you haven't, I've slightly lost track of which classes I've done that balance with, that way into the balance with not. So if you haven't done that approach to the balance and it felt quite wobbly, it's nice to be in child pose where we feel very, very close to the ground and not wobbly. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave. Now we're going to, in a moment, we're going to do some different sitting positions, and we're going to do a little bit of kapala bhati in breathing in each of them. So, Rachel, I put the tissues near to you, but if you people at home, if you haven't got a tissue, if you do kapala bhati, sometimes it makes your nose run. So you might just want a tissue to hand. So what I thought we would do first of all is just come into kneeling and remind ourselves of kapala bhati, and then we'll do it in some different positions. Yes, and Rachel, for you to sit, that would be better. Yeah, so sit either in kneeling, or if you don't like kneeling, sit with your back against a sofa or wall and your legs long. And let's bring one hand. Well, I always tend to bring my hand to my belly. You don't have to. So if you remember, kapala bhati is the one where we're doing those short, sharp out breaths through our nose. We let a breath come in. We don't need to do loads. In fact, all we're going to do in each of the sitting positions is 5. So maybe let's just try 5 now. We could do 5 short ones and make the 6th one a long one. So let a breath come in. And then if you need to blow your nose, you can do. And then we're going to move on into cobbler pose, facing the long edge of the mat. So the kapala bhati breathing, I'm sure you know what it means. It means shining skull breath. Again, if you wanted to in cobbler pose, sorry, I've moved you, but if you wanted to have your back against the sofa, you could do. Yeah, so if in cobbler pose you want to have your back against the wall or a sofa or a bed, you can do. Or if you're wanting to sit upright for kapala bhati breathing, you can hold your feet. And yeah, so I suppose in this one, I probably don't put my hands on my belly because I'm holding my feet, but if you want your hands on your belly. So we'll have 5 breaths here. So 5 short breaths. The 6th one is a long one. So let a breath come in. And then we'll just have a few quiet breaths in the pose, in the sitting pose, in cobbler pose. If you feel that you want to do a bit of rocking, you can do, but a little bit of swaying, that's nice. Anything like that you can. Or just a few quiet breaths sitting there. If you feel that you like to fold forwards a bit, that's absolutely fine. You might want to move your feet further away from you. Good. So just another breath or 2 in cobbler pose, doing whatever you would like to do here. And from cobbler pose, we're going to be coming on into our lovely cow legs. So there's lots of ways you can go into cow legs. If you've got a preferred way, you could do it. I mean, what I tend to do in this little sequence is come so I've got both feet standing on the floor a little distance apart, and then start to sneak one leg under the other, and then the other one on top and around. That's it. Yeah, good. Now we are going to do, Rachel, if you want to do, there's a way. I only thought of it today. There's this way we change. This funny way we change cow legs by sort of turning in a circle, change sides. So if you want to do that, you might have to move away from your wall. So let's do our 5 kapala. Let's just have a little rock and settle in cow legs. Obviously, lengthen out your bottom leg if that knee's not happy. Let's have our 5 kapalabhati breaths in this side of cow leg. So let a breath come in. This may be a little bit of turning, swinging your arms and turning from side to side, because kapalabhati helps us feel heavy from the waist down, and then hopefully a bit lighter from the waist up. Now, I will remind you, so if you want to try this, you follow your top foot. So you go in the direction of your top foot and you follow around and you keep going around, and then you change your legs. Hopefully. Something didn't quite happen. You could try again. Remember which leg you had on top. Yeah, I think that's right, isn't it? So, that one always makes me dizzy. That one. It's not what I. Some people love it, but it always makes me feel. Okay, so we should have our second leg on top in cow leg. So have a little bit of a wiggle. That's it, and then we'll do our 5 kapalabhati breaths again. So settling down, and again, think about maybe as you're doing these breaths. So 5 short ones, 6 ones, a long one. That we're trying to really give the pelvis and legs to the floor. So let a breath come in. And then again, we could just, sort of lightly turn from side to side. And then maybe finish turn towards our top leg. If we can work out which leg that would be. Yes, turn that's the top there, this way, that's it. So there's always, yes, the cow legs challenge of which is the top leg. And finish turn towards that leg for a couple of breaths. Good. And if you're really loving cow legs, you can stay there. Otherwise, we're going to release our legs. We might want to just give them a little roll. And then we're going to take our legs wide, sit with our legs long and wide, which I think most of us are quite happy with. So yeah, again, you can have your back against the surface if you like. Let's just first of all either lean back on your arms or your hands come forwards, or you've got the wall behind you. Give your legs a little roll. And also just what's it like to maybe just do a little bit of swaying of your body from side to side. Yeah. Good. And so I always think it's quite interesting doing kapalabhati in this wide sitting, because not always the easiest place to do it. So we might want to bring our hands onto our belly. You might want to have your hands on the floor. Let's see what it feels like to do our 5 kapalabhati breaths here. So letting the breath come in. Good, and then just a little bit more. You do a little bit of turning or a little bit of rolling your legs or swaying, and we'll try another 5 kapalabhati breaths here in a moment, as long as everyone's comfortable. Yes, if you like folding forward, that's also quite nice. So just sort of a couple more quiet breaths, or folding forwards or swaying or rolling your legs. And then we'll try one more cycle of kapalabhati breath breathing. This will be our last one. So again, you can have your hands resting wherever you like, letting a breath come in. So 5 short and then 1 long one at the end. Good. And then if you want to have a couple more breaths in your forward bend, it would be a good time to maybe think about going forwards a little bit. Otherwise, when you're ready, you're going to make your way into lying down on your back. And we're going to do a few little simple twisty things to finish. And and a little bit of breathing lying down. So that's it. Let yourselves come to settle down. And just if you want to put anything warm on it, I'll make sure how you temperature-wise. Okay, good. You're just letting yourself arrive and settle on your back for 2 or 3 cycles of breath. And the first thing you're going to do when you feel ready to move is to bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And come back to tilting your knees to the right and to the left. And just seeing how that movement feels today, right now. And then pause in the middle for a moment and cross your arms over your chest. And now you're going to let your knees and your elbows and your head all roll over to one side and then to the other. So that's it. Good. Rock or roll. Good. So you're rolling across the back of your body. That's very nice. Just side to side movement. So it maybe feels like you're giving yourself a bit of a massage, particularly across the upper back. That can be a large or a small movement, whatever feels good right now. You can carry on a few more times. And then in your own time, you can uncross your arms. You can keep your knees bent or lengthen your legs out if you prefer. The last thing I'm going to suggest is finishing where we started, which is rubbing your hands together and bringing your palms over your eyes. I'm going to turn this light up, Rachel. Good. And it might be that you then want to let your head roll a little bit from side to side with your palms over your eyes, and gives you that little bit of darkness. You can keep your palms over your eyes for as long as you like. Or you can, whenever you want, you can bring your hands to your belly or rest your arms by your side. We're just going to have 2 or 3 minutes of lying quietly, letting the body settle. Join this, Rachel. Would you like a blanket, lovely? You sure? Yes. So make sure you're going to be warm enough. Just let the length of your body settle on the ground. Your knees could be bent or your legs could be long. Your arms could be on the floor or your hands could be resting on your belly. Maybe start by feeling 2 or 3 cycles of breath moving through you. And from feeling the movement of your breath somewhere in your body, then let your awareness travel to the points of the back of your body that are in contact with the floor. So feeling the back of your head on the floor, the back of the shoulders, some of the points of the back of the ribs and the vertebrae, some of that part of you will be in contact with the floor, some of it won't be. The elbows, down to the back of the pelvis and feeling how the right side of the pelvis rests on the floor, how the left side of the pelvis rests on the floor. And down through the backs of the legs if your legs are long, down to the heels, feeling the footprints on the floor if your knees are bent. Then taking your attention to the front of your body. Just letting the face soften, particularly that point between your eyebrows, letting your jaw soften and relax. And down through the belly and the chest and the fronts of the legs. Imagining all your skin there, just softening, relaxing, settling. In a moment, I'm going to ring the singing bowl, but just take these last few moments to maybe feel the air on your skin. Be aware of sounds, both near and more distant.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.